Every year, millions of guests visit amusement parks all around the world to ride roller coasters. And these roller coasters range in height, speed, size, and experience. On average, when a rider steps aboard a roller coaster, they're going to have an exhilarating experience that's going to last 1 to 2 minutes. But what makes that 1 to 2 minute experience possible? One of the most unique amusement parks in the entire world is Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park, located high in the Rockies in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. To access the park, guests will step aboard a gondola and ascend 1,300 feet up the mountain. As guests reach the top, they'll get their first view at the park's newest and largest roller coaster, Defiance. The coaster saw its first riders in 2022. However, years of planning and experience preceded it, and decades of skilled maintenance and operation will see it through its life.
Hi, I'm Nancy Hurd. I'm General Manager of the Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park. So behind me here is the Defiance coaster. That ride was first conceived by our owner and founder, Steve Beckley. He had been on a ride very similar to that in the Mall of America. It's called a tower coaster, so it goes way up like this and then drops more than 90 degrees coming down. He really liked that ride, but we had some other ideas. It wasn't the only idea that we had. Of course, he won. I got to be involved in going out to several different companies, providing them with plot maps of the park, inviting them to come look at it, and they walked around the train, and then they each came back with a proposal. The other idea was to actually take the coaster across the hillside off to the cliff, and it was going to go out over the cliff and come back and make a run back. We looked at that one, and just really the cost of installation was just too much. So we knew we wanted a coaster. The key driver was the drop. Anything we can do to show off the view is awesome. Like, we have 3 of our rides that are on the cliff's edge. Rides that might not be that scary in a flat park, but you go put them on the edge of a cliff and it kind of changes the feel of the ride. And then after that, we turned it over to Gerstlauer and said, give us a design. You know, some people wanted inversions and things like that. They came back with this really cool simulation, a video simulation, which was way different than just showing you a few photos. It was fantastic and we were sold. That was the only iteration we went through was, no, we love it. We landed on this idea primarily because of the small footprint. Now, it wasn't that we don't have land, because look at this, we got land. But our land is not very developable. We take full advantage of our topography, right? However, there are a lot of challenges that come with that. And our construction season's very short, and that construction season is in the heart of winter. So when it comes to excavating this, we were excavating the, I think, 22 different footers in the January-February timeframe. Another thing is just access. When we bring semi-trucks up here, and we can get them up here, but it's a narrow road with a 17% grade. These trucks come up, we have to get them into the flat spot up here in the plaza, and then once we've unloaded them in a staging area, we literally have to take a crane, pick up the bed of the semi-truck, turn the bed around with the cranes, because there's nowhere for them to turn around. There's only really one way to access this. We don't have 360-degree access. Now, that's not just for construction, that's also in terms of evacuations and other things in maintenance on the ride. And we can't very easily bring a fire truck up with a ladder. Now, can we? So those are some big considerations, you know, operationally as well. Things that maybe a flat park really wouldn't consider. One of the advantages of working for a small company is there's not a lot of red tape. We essentially see how we did one season. We evaluate how much capital we have going into the next year. We signed the agreement in November, I think, of one year in 2021, and we had this ride open by July 1st of 2022. And of course, we're waiting with bated breath after. We all love the ride, but we're enthusiasts, right? I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. Our mission is to make people smile. And if you would have sat at the exit line watching people get off this ride, it was nothing but, oh my gosh, and smiles, and I gotta do that again. most people got out of line and went right back into it. So it truly was the reception we were looking for, and we're still getting the same reaction from our guests. They're still very pleased. A lot of good write-ups about it, a lot of good publicity about it, and it's really just a showpiece, right? You can see this thing for miles. It's kind of like our own little billboard. The maintenance and the operations have been smooth as silk. Gerstlauer has been phenomenal in terms of providing the preventative maintenance schedules and the support that they've given us, as well as transitioning that then to our maintenance team, who have been phenomenal in terms of maintaining the ride, as well as our operations team. So it's been really a fun ride, and it's been seamless.
My name is Trevor Peterson. I'm a maintenance technician at Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park, and I work on the Defiance roller coaster. We get here a couple hours before park opens, and what I'm really preparing to do is go through a daily inspection. We want to make sure that every part on this roller coaster looks and functions as the manufacturer has intended it to be. This is what's called the rescue basket. It's designed to extract passengers from a train that might be stalled on the lift hill, but we also use it every single day for our daily inspection of the lift hill itself. I'm checking for all of our bolted and welded connections, making sure that the structural integrity of the lift hill itself is still in good working condition. I'm also checking for wear on the chain and the rollback system. What the rollback system does is essentially if the chain were to fail, the car would not slide all the way back down the lift hill, it'll just stop right where it is, and thus the need for a rescue basket. Welcome to the top of Defiance, what I think is the best view in the park. What I'm looking for here is to make sure that the sprocket wheel up here has not developed any cracks, the bearings are still in good condition and we're not going to have any weird vibrations, and that the teeth still have minimal wear in them to make sure that they're still going to grab the chain as it's supposed to. Being up here doesn't really faze me anymore. I mean, you have to have a healthy respect and understanding of where you're at and the reality of the situation, but there's a reason why they gave this to the rock climber. Right over here, we can see what's called the pusher block. This is what actually picks up the car and takes it to the top of the lift hill and drops it over the top there. Moving up here, we have what are called the rollback clamps. So as the car comes onto the lift hill, it has a little bit of momentum. What these do are some locking cams that will clamp onto one of the brake fins on the car and prevent it from rolling backwards before it's picked up by that pusher block. On our lift hill here, we have two sets of teeth that function as part of our anti-rollback system. On our cars, there are two levers that if the car were to start rolling backwards on the lift hill, those levers would drop into these teeth like a ratchet and prevent it from moving backwards more than an inch or two. Just outside of those teeth, we have these bristles that function as rollback silencers. There's a set of cams on those levers on the bottom of the cars called rollback dogs that these bristles ride against, pulling those rollback dogs out of the teeth and making it so that the lift hill isn't all rattly as the car goes up. As a maintenance tech on a newer ride, one of the features I find particularly convenient is the lift hill automatic greasing system. So there's a set of bristles in here that have pressurized air going through a greasing reservoir that continuously pumps a little bit of grease onto our lift chains, so it's something I don't really have to worry about except making sure that the reservoir is full. So now we are currently standing out on the brake run platform. Here we can see all of our reducing brakes. The furthest brakes out on the brake run are statics, just reducing brakes. They are always going to be there because the car is coming in pretty fast out of that last roll. Moving closer to us, we have a couple of eddy current brakes that go through a set of magnets that are fixed to the bottom of the car. What this does is it induces a magnetic field that actually uses that to brake the car itself. This style of braking does not have any additional wear because there's no physical components that are sliding together. These brake fins here are also movable, so as the train comes into the brake run, there's a set of proximity switches here along the track that will actually calculate the speed of the car as it comes in and pull the fins out of the magnets and insert them back into the magnets as necessary to slow the car down to its desired speed. The system knows what speed it wants the car to be at as it enters this last set of brakes. It's not something that we can monitor or change, but since these magnetic brakes cannot bring the car to a complete stop, if the ride system detects that the car does need to stop outside the station in the brake run, we have a set of pinch brakes here, or friction brakes, that physically clamp onto another fin that's mounted onto the bottom of the car, and this will lock the car in place and prevent it from going any further past this point. So right now we're doing our morning track walk. Behind me we have a lot of columns and track sections that I'm looking for overall structural integrity of the metal, so making sure that the welds are still in good present condition. You never know what I'm going to find down here. Another important reminder to secure all loose articles before coming on a roller coaster. I am currently standing in one of our multiple restricted areas of the ride. Now, while I'm in here, our ride is locked out and secure, but the reason why this fence is here to begin with is this is a low clearance zone on a track, and if you're in here during normal operation, you're at a risk for being impacted by a train. So we are now currently inside the Defiance maintenance area. This is where we can do some of a more in-depth routine maintenance on some of our cars that we have in service still, as well as our more in-depth complete teardown and rebuilds for our annual inspections. So the car I have next to me here, car number 1, is a car I have pulled off the track so I can do some weekly and monthly inspections and routine maintenance on, whereas car 2 behind me here has begun its disassembly process for its annual full rebuild inspection of the various axles, wheel components, and restraint blocks. As you can see, we've taken off most of the fiberglass body panels, giving us some more skeletonized look of what's actually inside of each seat in particular. Here we can see the 2 different cylinders for our restraint locking units. These are both redundant cylinders that alternate back and forth every time the ride goes around, which one's an active and which one's a passive locking unit, to make sure that there's that double redundancy in our restraint system. So the natural state of these restraints, once you push them down, is closed and locked, and the only way you can reopen them again is by supplying power to the system. Now, in the case of our roller coaster here, the only place you're able to do so in normal operation is when it's parked at home in the station. On the off chance you need to open those restraints when the train is not in that home position, we have the ability to do so by plugging in a battery box. So if we look up here, these are what are called current collectors. They're what supply the restraints power in the station during its normal operation. There's a set of what are called slip rails in the station. These will slide through those grooves, making that electrical connection and allowing that restraint release button to actually function, opening up all 8 restraints at one time. So I'm standing next to the bogie assembly, meaning it's a collection of non-powered wheels. So once the car drops off the top of the lift hill, gravity is going to take it from there. Now it's made up of 3 different types of wheels. So first we have our running wheels. This is what bears most of the load as the car is in its normal orientation and upright position. Moving down, we have our guide wheels. These are spring-loaded and keep the car centered on the track and also dampen it a little bit in the corners as it does its high G maneuvers. And finally, we have our upstop wheels. So when the car goes upside down, all that weight's going to be transferred onto these upstops and it's going to stay exactly where it should be in the center of the track. In the center, we have what's called the chain dog. This is what interacts with the pusher block on the lift hill. So that pusher block will make contact with the chain dog and then push the entire car up the lift hill and over the top. Now on either side of the chain dog, we have the anti-rollback dogs. In any case, if the chain dog were to fail and the car begins to roll backwards on the lift hill, these levers, the anti-rollback dogs, will drop into the teeth that are on the lift hill and just like a giant ratchet system will prevent it from going back more than an inch or two. Earlier when we looked at our brake run, we looked at the different types of brakes we have out on those assemblies. Now right above me we have two sets of magnets, one on the front of the car and one on the back, that those brake fins will slide through, making the eddy current braking actually work. As you can imagine, these magnets have to be pretty powerful to stop a car that weighs about 3 tons fully loaded, so you want to be pretty careful when you're working around them. On the opposite side of the car, we have the brake fins that are mounted on the bottom of the car here. These holes flagged the prox sensors in the brake run at a specific interval to calculate the speed of the car as it enters the brakes, so the brake run knows when to pull those movable brakes out of the way and when to put them back into the magnets. In the car right here, we have some test devices in the seats. What these are designed to do are test the individual locking cylinders for the restraints themselves. It deactivates one of the 2 cylinders inside the restraint, and this box in the seat pushes out on the restraint itself just to make sure that there has not been any hydraulic fluid leaking out of the cylinder restraints. Part of our weekly restraint inspection also includes checking what's called the minimum closing distance. So what I'm doing here is making sure that the restraint doesn't register as fully closed and locked until I get to this minimum closing distance, which is measured by this stick.
My name is Arthur Wheeler. I'm the attractions manager here at Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park. In my role, I oversee all of our training and daily operation of all of our rides and attractions. My role in attractions is a big passion of mine, right? I started in the industry, on the frontline level, working my way up from an operator level. I get to live my dream out here every day, working with roller coasters, working with our guests, working with our fabulous maintenance teams, and it's just an absolute dream job. Kind of a day in the life of my role. We show up to the park a few hours before the park opens, and we first start working with our maintenance team. They perform a maintenance inspection, then our team will come in and follow that up with an operational inspection. Then from that point, we're going to look at staffing all of our rides and attractions for that day, looking at who is trained where. We kind of hold a morning safety meeting every morning, talking about different topics, different focus points we want our team to be focusing on. A large part of my role is revising and ensuring that our training program is very consistent and ensuring that our operators are meeting the standards of performance in our training program. So kind of from start to finish, when we bring a new team member on board, first step is we get them into a department orientation. And in that department orientation, we go through an IROC certification. So an IROC certification is an International Ride Operator certification. It's probably most comparable to, like if you were at a water park, a lifeguard certification, right? International Ride Training has been a phenomenal support for us. IRT provides kind of an industry-wide standard for ride operator training. We follow all of their standards of performance in their training program to certify our operators. So that begins with an all-day classroom training, right? So we get them in there, we first introduce them to the IROC operator resource manual. They're going to use it every single time that they send a cycle, right? From being professional to understanding how to properly do a restraint check, to understanding what we call a pre-dispatch safety check, and then always being prepared and kind of how to respond to different situations. When we develop those standard operating procedures, they're developed from recommendations from the manufacturer of the ride, from our own experience here at the park, as well as IROC, right? So we have all of these great fields of experience that come together, and it's something that the operator can always return back to know and understand that that's how the ride is supposed to be operated, right? And it keeps it very consistent. Once they've read that, they'll go out to the ride for a ride tour. We're going to tell them how the ride works, where the restricted areas are, where their safe zones are. So their trainer's going to give them continue those demonstration cycles until the trainee feels comfortable and confident to try it on their own. And then under the supervision of that trainer, they'll go through a minimum number of cycles, and that's different based on the size of the ride, how much time that's going to take. But it's always enough cycles to make sure that that operator is going to feel comfortable and confident in their role. Once we've done that, we're going to go through a written knowledge assessment, which is going to kind of have some things from the SOP, as well as we move them into a skills-based assessment and observe them, right, and essentially watch their operation and make sure that it's meeting the standards of performance. And then from that point, the operator will be signed off on that right there, and the leads are always available to them, right? So every single day, we're always out on the park watching all of our operators and ensuring that training stays consistent and that they're operating based on their training and the standard operating procedures. And one of our biggest tools in doing that is an auditing program. Auditing might seem kind of scary when you kind of hear the word, but auditing is more about supporting our operators, right? Making sure that they know how to do their job, that they feel supported. So we'll go out there and we'll watch that operator, sometimes very obviously and sometimes a little more covertly, so we can kind of get that honest performance of the operator. And if there's any sort of deviance from that, we're going to offer that correction for them, right? Help them understand the whys behind the training and why it's important to remain consistent to that training. So International Ride Training, the developers of the IROC program, they also come and provide third-party auditing. External auditing really helps us get that really fine look at how our operation is doing and how our training program is doing. I'm very proud of the scores that we've received through our third-party audits, and I think it says a lot to the consistency of our training program as well as the dedication of our team. So applying that training to Defiance, for example, the operator is going to be looking for all of the rider requirements to ensure that that rider is going to be able to safely interact with the ride. So for example, here at Defiance, we have a 48-inch height requirement. So as we're admitting people into the ride, we're going to ensure that all of our riders meet that height requirement, as well as several other rider requirements that are included. During our restraint check process, we're ensuring that the restraint is properly fit to the rider, right? This is the very core of an operator's role while they're operating a ride or attraction. In addition to communicating operator to rider, it's also important to communicate operator-operator. So the operators are going to sometimes use different hand signals. Most commonly, you're going to see an all-clear hand signal, right? That's another form of critical communication that we have. And then we're going to make sure that our gates are closed and locked and secure by a visual check of that. And then finally, that all of our team members are inside their safe zone. And all those 5 things are satisfied. Our pre-dispatch safety check is complete. The operators are going to give their all-clear hand signal, and they're going to say something along the lines of all clear dispatch, and then they're going to dispatch that ride. And as it's dispatching, the operators are always going to be aware of what's happening on their ride and attraction, where their ride units are, and how to respond in different situations. You know, once we've kind of gone through all of this right here, we've now created this wonderful experience for our guests, right? So that they can come in here and have all of our rides and attractions ready for them to safely experience. And what's most rewarding about my position here is being able to see the experience that our riders have, right? That our guests have when they come up to the park. You know, our riders, they're gonna experience that ride for maybe a minute or just over a minute, right? But then understanding bringing that rider that minute was backed up by years of dedicated experience from our executive team, from our construction and design team, from our maintenance team and our operations team to ensure that a ride like Defiance is ready and available for our riders to come and experience and just have a fantastic time here and, you know, make memories to last a lifetime. Bringing that experience for that single guest that we deliver for thousands of our guests every single day is very, very rewarding.